Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk Horror to Me. I am your host, one of your hosts, Matt, with my hostess, Chrissy. Go ahead and say hi.
Yes, I
The
am
other,
the other host,
the other
Chrissy.
host.
Oh,
I mean, we're both hosts. If we're technically both in the same room, are we both technically the others of each other? Because I'm the other host.
if we fall forest,
Exactly.
would we hear each
Either way,
other?
today we were talking about Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. This is one of my picks because it is a. I don't want to say faithful is probably not the right term if you know Resident Evil, but it was an attempt to reboot the Resident Evil movies post Mia Jovovich Resident Evil series, which I think there's either six or seven
Hmm.
movies in that series. Um, yeah, I mean it
Holy,
grossed over $1 billion. I think the entire series hit over $1 billion, and they were pretty low budget, especially as the series went on. So it was a big moneymaker for Sony. So it doesn't surprise me that it's like, hey, this is over with. They're not making more of these. Why not in a couple years reboot the entire Resident Evil series and try again? And they did that. They so did that with Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City, which came out exclusive to in theaters in 2021. So this was mid-pandemic. I would say, I guess 2021 was kind of like mid to end-ish. I should say end-ish, but it was when people were starting to give up on it and kind of go back to regular life things.
starting to
Yeah.
get used to it.
Um, so without further ado, I guess we'll play the trailer real quick and lay the groundwork. How about that? Does that work? Okay.
Yeah.
I think the last time I saw this trailer, okay, so there's no November, so late November in 2021. So this was definitely getting into that people were tired of it phase. But I think I've only seen this trailer once, and that was probably when they announced this movie. Screen Gems was also the people that produced the Mia Jovovich Resident Evil, so same production company decided to keep making them.
So when you said that this was the movie we're gonna watch, I was like, okay, cool. And I looked up Mila Jovovich to try to find the movie, and then that's when I realized, oh wait,
Yep.
no, she's not in this movie. So then I had to look up Resident Evil to find it, and I'm like, oh, because you know what? I've never heard of this before, and I was very unaware of it. And then I was explaining it to somebody, and they were like, oh yeah, this character, and their brother was this guy, and I'm like, how do you know this? You've never seen this movie. And they were like, well, I mean, that's the story. And I'm like, what? Like, I have no clue what you're talking about. So I know nothing, even after
Okay.
watching this movie,
You
really
you
about
came out
anything.
knowing less than you did when you went into it, kind of thing. It progressively wiped your memory.
I heard Raccoon City and
Okay.
Umbrella things. Those are words I've heard because I saw a couple of the Mila movies, and
I
that
know
is
some of
it.
these words. Yeah. So basically, here's the thing. You know, they wanted to reboot the series. The director that they gave it to, he said we're gonna do more of a faithful adaptation to Resident Evil.
Wait, is this of a like okay, is
Yeah,
this based
Resident
off a
Evil
video
is like
game or like a
probably one of
comic
the
book?
original survival horror video games of all time. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
it's a video
Oh man.
game?
So you know
Original.
nothing.
Okay.
Okay. So
No,
yeah.
I know nothing. I'm Jon
Resident
Snow.
Evil is I mean it's probably one of the most well known video game franchises of all time. It started on the PlayStation One. It's definitely one of the main things that Capcom is known for.
You know, I
Yeah,
was too
that's
busy
true.
playing
That's
Crash
true.
Bandicoot.
So, I'll hop over to the part with the info here. But yeah, Resident Evil is like basically in my mind one of the original zombie games ever. Um, it's kind of a
Okay.
survival horror puzzle game. In fact, the original games are very confined space. They're not like big, expansive open world kinds of stuff. It's a lot of like backtracking. It's like, hey, the game takes place in this building.
Mhm.
You're gonna be hitting all these different rooms, and there's locked doors, and you got to solve all these puzzles to unlock things. Um, And so the interesting thing about it is this movie was an attempt to be more of um, true to the original game's stories. The director wanted it to be a more faithful adaptation to the stories because the Mia Jovovich ones are kind of wackadoo not. They picked some characters that they liked here and there, but none of the story lines up with the game like at all.
Okay.
The first one is the most
Okay.
faithful to the games, but after that it's just like they made everything up and ran with it. So this movie was supposed to like dial it back, be more low key, and what they kind of did, and it's really weird, but they kind of mashed game one and game two together, um, and put them both into the movie and kind of made the events happen in parallel. Because game one takes place um, in the mansion, which is the place that gets infiltrated by some of the people. Um, and game two takes place in the police department, Raccoon City Police Department. So the game kind of
Oh,
or the movie has both of those locations. Um, I will
yeah.
say, before we get too into the weeds about it, from a cinematography perspective, like both the mansion and the police department feel very faithful to the games. Like they look great. The mansion looks fantastic. The mansion is basically it has this
Mm-hmm.
very old Victorian kind of era feel to it, and it's like that's great. Love it. Um, Police department looks kind of like a police department, but from a Raccoon City Police Department, the inside is supposed to be pretty grandiose, the main lobby and stuff. Which you can see Leon Kennedy, they put him on desk duty. He's sitting behind the desk listening to his music or whatever. Like that
Oh my gosh,
yeah, that
that
was.
scene
I
was
know that
so
was great.
fun.
So before we get into that, um, basically as a recap, this movie is supposed to be a mashup, sort of game one and game two. The problem is they had to fudge some of the events, some of the things that happen with people to try to make
Oh,
that work,
okay.
and that's where some of the people that watch this, or at least some of the fans of the game series, were like, yeah, not exactly a faithful adaptation when you have to like you keep all of the original characters but you change the way that they act. So
But they
they
kept the characters, I guess,
yeah, they
is
kept the
the point,
characters,
right?
and so I guess I can talk through when we get to that point. I can talk through some of the um like what was in the game versus what was not kind of stuff. Um,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I let's first we'll get over the data and the plot and stuff really quickly here. So basically, it follows um, the investigation into Raccoon City, why it's getting overrun, or people are getting sick, what's going on with it, and it follows some of our main characters. There's the Redfields, Chris Redfield. There's Jill Valentine, Leon Kennedy. These are all mainstay characters um, from the game, and they all pretty much work for. It's Raccoon Police Department kind of SWAT team sort of stuff. Um, and they get sent to the mansions, or I should say, some of them get sent to the mansions to investigate a disturbance. And basically, it all starts going down, right? They start to encounter zombies there. The city, the people start to change into zombies in the city, um, and through the games, this is supposed to take place over like a 6 month span. It's supposed to be very slow spread,
Uh-huh.
slow infection.
Holy cow. Okay. Can I tell you I've never played this game before. Here's what this movie
Yeah,
was
let's do
about,
that.
plot
Yeah, you give it to me.
review. Okay, so there's this girl, and she was an orphan as a kid, and there was some weird stuff going on in the orphanage when she was there with her brother, and then she comes back as an adult, and there's some like weird disease thing going on that looks like it's being spread through blood, and I think it has something to do with maybe people being zombies. And so she's back in this town and she's like meeting up with like these people she hasn't seen since she was a kid, and there's some like weird tension going on, and then like everyone else seems to be a cop, unless they're a zombie. And there's something weird, like you're starting to get background about maybe some bad things with this umbrella corporation were going on. And then all of a sudden, people are turning into like crazy creatures. And then there's this mad scientist guy who was actually the reason she ran away. But does the brother even understand that? And he has this awesome relationship with the guy where, like, he took him under his wing. And will he ever understand? And there's one way to get out. And luckily, the creepy stuff that happened as a kid is going to help her get out. And they get
See,
on a train.
that's an interesting take or summary on the events of Resident Evil 1 and 2. So here's the weird part about it.
Because it all happened in one
Yeah, I
day,
know. That's kind
too.
of the thing is the way they kind of painted it in the movie is that like the spreading of disease was sort of done through like the water supply in this, and it took a while. Like it was affecting the town for a while, but then it's like when
Yeah.
they turned quick. Like they basically um, were like mega infected and just started.
Like the trucker
Yeah.
and his dog. Like they were just people who came in and got it like right
Mm-hmm.
away and were
So that
spreading
scene with
it.
like the trucker and the girl in the street, like that's faithful. The opening scene with the uh, uh, convenience store kind of thing at the beginning there. Yeah, that's from
Yeah.
the when they're getting gas or whatever, right? That's from the games.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the police station stuff from the games, faithful to the games. There's some shots that are like 1-to-1 from the cutscenes in the games to what they did in the movie. So there's, and in fact, I
Okay.
think I've got one of those on the cinematography
That's
slide. So
really
they
cool.
did some like interesting stuff like that. That it there's some beats that are very faithful. Story wise, there's some things that are just not like like
Uh,
the orphanage stuff with like the weird mutant girl and junk, like all of that is just like like why,
right.
what is this? Yeah, it's like what
That
is this
wasn't in the
doing here? It makes
games.
no sense that it even is there. um the crazy doctor guy is he's one of the bosses in Resident Evil 2, and when he goes like full mutant, his arm and everything changes, like that's a boss.
Yeah.
And he's progressively a boss throughout the game in Resident Evil 2. He just never dies. He always keeps coming back bigger and meaner and uglier. So like that's a real character, and a real thing that happens, fictionally, of course, a real fictional thing that happens. Um, the busting in of the mansion, where it's like a team that goes into the mansion, and Wesker's there, and Chris Redfield's there, Jill Valentine's there. Like that's all part of Resident Evil 1. Like they do that, and you go in as a team or a group while you're solving the mysteries of the mansion. So like a lot of that stuff happened, and that's what's so weird about it is that there are like beats that truly match up with the games. But then they did some weird like story tie-in
Hmm.
stuff that was like, why even bother? Like the whole mutant person orphanage thing. I'm like, why? Why any of that storyline? Um, I mean, the main big spoiler that you kind of figure out in like RE1 and RE2 is that their Umbrella Corporation is like the world's super pharmaceutical company. They're like in everything, like they all sorts of products, they make everything globally, but they were testing bioweapons, and there's a ginormous underground lab underneath Raccoon City. That's where they were developing and testing everything. There's like a whole other city underground sized lab underneath Raccoon City. And so that's where they were developing like the T virus and stuff like that, which eventually broke out and infected the world. Um, so that's Umbrella Corporation is it's kind of like big faceless entity. It's this you know thing that's just in everything, and they're kind of evil and mean and yada yada yada. Um, the interesting thing about it is Wesker. He's the big muscly SWAT guy that was getting text messages from a mysterious person and money to like steal,
Okay.
the virus.
Yeah, 'cause then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what's this story going
Well, and
on?
that's
Like,
kind of the
who's
weird
this
thing is like
guy?
Wesker is a part of the original team, but he becomes the main villain across like every Resident Evil game for like 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He becomes infected with the
Wow. So, was this movie set
yeah,
up
I think
for
so.
more
I think
movies
so.
to be made?
And that's kind of the
Okay.
weirdest thing. So I was looking up this director. Now we're on the information. I was looking up the director, Johannes Roberts. Um, he has a bunch of other like horror movies under his belt, but none of them are like big name. They're all like original. I would say like Shutter kind of movies. They're it's
Okay.
whatever. It's like horror movie fodder kind of stuff. Um, and he was
Okay.
interviewed about this, and they were saying, well, what could we expect from a sequel if this does well? Like, what would we kind of see? Would we just move on to Resident Evil 3? And he goes, well, probably not. He goes, I'm really interested in Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil Code Veronica or like all these other games that he wanted to jump around at. And I'm thinking, why like just go in order? Like Resident Evil 3 would be a natural step. Like these movies take place, or these games take place shortly after one another, like in succession.
Okay, so they
Yeah,
actually like do go in order, and he
yeah. And
wants
so
to jump around.
I think people are
Oh,
like,
interesting.
why you want to do that?
And he goes, "Because I'm an
Maybe that's what it is.
artist."
Maybe that's what it is.
Period.
So, yeah, and that was kind of the thing, is he sort of said like, this was supposed to be a faithful adaptation, but then fans of the game series were kind of like, yeah, I don't see that. Like the people are there.
Faithful is
Yes, right. So,
subjective, right?
um, so yeah, I mean, to kind of stick with some of this, this movie's a little over hour and a half. It's an hour and 47 minutes. Um, they had a budget 25 mil, and as a theater exclusive, it made 42 million. Now, I don't remember a lot
Nice.
of marketing around this, to be completely honest with you. So I'm sure.
I
Yeah,
don't
so I'm
remember it
I'm
at all.
pretty sure they probably didn't blow the budget with marketing. The thing is like with movie costed 25 mil and marketing on it, it probably didn't. I'm sure it came out in the black, but it probably didn't make a lot of money. I'm sure it barely made recouped money kind of thing. So um, if there was a sequel, I don't know, not sure. Not-
It's been 2 years. I
yeah,
haven't heard anything else. I actually thought that this was like a brand new release when I was looking it up. I'm like, whoa, this new movie. So it wasn't until you started talking right now that I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this
it's too.
movie
I
is
mean,
two
it's,
years
it's
old.
but I mean, respectively, like it's shot like a newer movie. Like it looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I liked it. It
Yeah,
was
so
fun.
there's some like from a cinematography. I mean, we can talk about that. Like this shot here with the zombie that's like it's kind of in a lab coat eating a guy, and it does a slow turn and looks at the camera. That's 100% from Resident Evil 1 cutscene. Like you just shot for shot. If you look at the opening cutscene of that game, that's exactly what happens. That's the first reveal of the zombie.
Okay.
The raccoon police department pan up logo and stuff like that. That's all from Resident Evil 2 when you're in the police department. The liquors there, the big kind of brain thing with the giant tongue. That's from RE2, everything like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, from a cinematography standpoint, it's very competent. It looked good. I think it was a good looking movie. Um, Shots were framed well. Everything looked really clean. There was a lot of practical effect, which I liked. Despite like big
Mhm.
boss monster kind of at the end of it looking, definitely see.
There were like a few
Yeah,
things, but yeah, no, it was good. It was clean, pretty movie. It had some fun things too, where it did fun stuff with the sound
yeah,
that really lent to like what you're seeing. Like with the guy at the headphones, where it's like blocking everything out, kind of things. So, like what you're seeing isn't really matching what you're hearing. So that was cool. It was an interesting movie to watch. Um, but I felt like it was prettier than it was nicer to look at than it was to actually
I
like pay
I
attention
got you.
to.
That kind of makes sense. Like I sort of see what you're saying with there. I will say like I touched on practical effects, but like the zombies look really good. Like I think all the people that they had to dress up as zombies and set them up just like from their makeup, whether they're more,
Like the
yeah, it's all like
oozing
the bloody
eyes,
stuff, and
even
it
the
looks
blood and
really
stuff.
good. Like the
Hmm.
people who had to be zombies look really really
Yeah.
good, and you see zombies of um all all levels, stages of transformation, if you will. People that are kind of like pre-zombie but are starting to turn, people that are like almost ready to turn, people that have been straight turned for a long time. Like you get to see all of that, and I think it looks great. I had a lot of fun with that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think. I mean, what you said is kind of like true. I mean, it is a movie that's really pretty to look at, but maybe not so much to pay attention to. There's some stuff in there where you're like, why are we talking about this right now? Go do something. So, um,
And I definitely wanted more. Like I wanted more scenes of that freaky girl in the orphanage. And now that I know she wasn't even part of the video game, I'm like, why? Maybe that's why she was in like three scenes, but I feel like she was supposed to be a pivotal part. I just feel like we it was assumed we knew a lot about these people without them actually building
yeah,
anybody up. Which now me understanding where it's coming from, it's like maybe they do assume that I know more
yeah.
about
So
these people.
that's what I'm like. I don't really know. Like they, what I was kind of getting at is like there's some stuff with like test subjects. They touch on some of that or they talk about some of that with like some of the characters and things, but the whole it just like doesn't make sense to make a whole story arc around it. Like why even deal with it? Um, and the Doctor too is
Yeah.
kind of an interesting introduction in the games because he's kind of like a dude that you just sort of hear about. Like you don't really know a lot about him, and then you
Okay.
sort of get thrown into a situation to where it's like, oh, here's the Doctor, and he's been the thing that's been making a lot of loud noise above you in that corridor because he's a giant turned monster kind of thing. Um, and so
Uh-huh.
yeah, there's some stuff like that that it's like I almost think it would be cool. I feel like it's like the less you know, the more interesting it is. You leave more up to the imagination, and it's.
Instead, like it had his family
Yeah, that
involved
that
and
was all of
everything.
that was like I was just like I don't know where we're going with some of that. I mean, I don't know why we need it, what we're thinking about that, but it seemed like it was kind of trying to set characters up for I guess their next logical stages in the Resident Evil series, wherever that may be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because supposedly out of those events, like the downfall of Raccoon City, as well as the lab and everything getting blown up, there's really only supposed to be, I think, 5 survivors, which is the Redfields. There's Chris and Claire Redfield. There's Leon Kennedy, um, Jill Valentine, and then the one you don't know about, which is Wesker. And Jill
Who's
Valentine is
Valentine?
I don't know how to describe her other than the other chick. There's the one that we're here. We have a picture of her. Jill Valentine's the one right here.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
she's
yeah,
really
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
Chris. She
yeah.
hangs
Okay,
out with
now I
Chris.
remember.
She's part of the SWAT crew. So um, yeah, they and Jill Valentine becomes a big character in 3. So uh, yeah, I think it worked for the most part. The thing is like I would get if your source material was kind of weak, and they're like we gotta fill in some of these gaps. Like it's just a story that's not there. So in order to make a movie, we have to kind of make some stuff up. But it's like there is plenty of source material to make this movie.
Like they were jam packing it in, but also like leaving
Yeah,
stuff
they took
out,
out source material to
but
add their own.
adding stuff that wasn't
I was like, why?
necessary. Yeah. It's kind of like fanfic, but like not even committing to being
That,
completely fan
that's a good
fiction.
way of putting that. Yes, it's very strange, like Resident Evil fan fiction to do it that way. I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would. Um, Casting, I will say there's a bunch of people in here that it's like you might recognize for something, but you don't know where. Like there's a lot of, I would say, young blood or fresh kind of actors in here. I think, compared to, I don't know, the other Mia Jovovich Resident Evil movies or something like that. So I thought they were all good. They're all great. It just
I recognized two people, and that was it. And they were the
he's in a lot of
doctor
stuff.
guy, and yeah, and the police
Police
captain
captain, yeah, he
guy.
was in. He was in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
He's in a lot of things. Most
You know what?
recently, Law and Order
There's
SVU,
there's
from
a
what I
third guy that you
remember.
recognize and
But
you just don't remember it.
oh golly, I'm trying to think who
The
else was in
helicopter
here.
pilot from
Who?
Letterkenny. The
The
helicopter pilot
helicopter
from
pilot.
Letterkenny. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're totally
Yeah.
right.
So he had a role definitely. I
Okay.
mean, of Letterkenny fame. He had a role kind of outside of Letterkenny as the
Yeah.
helicopter pilot, which I mean, he was funny but didn't last too long.
No, no. And there were very few, like, that was it. There were only a handful of people in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe 10 total. So, I mean, it makes sense if it came out in 2021, was it shot during
Probably.
the
Yeah, that's the
pandemic?
thing. Late 2021, you probably had a wrap of like early, February, March of 2021. So you were shooting, I'm sure, late 2020, if not. I don't know how much COVID delayed shooting. I'm sure by quite a bit. But
Right.
yeah.
Or if it was before then,
So it was
but
it was definitely like it's weird because I can't say that this movie it feels so in between. It's like it doesn't have that just phone it in quality of like a pandemic movie, but it's not quite the like Hollywood blockbuster theater exclusive either. It's so it's so in
no.
between, with what with the outcome. And I was trying to think was we were talking about Super Deep. That's the one I always go back to because I remember the set quality of that being really good um, for the time that it was
Yeah.
filmed. And I think that only had a budget of like, wasn't it like 7 or 8 million or something like that? Like it wasn't a whole lot. So, so
I
you sit here and you're like, this is like 4 times the budget, 3 times the budget, I should say.
they spent all the money on the effects, like whether practical or like the special effects or whatever you would call it, the computer stuff. Like this movie
Yeah,
was
it looked good.
pretty, but it was also a little
Yeah,
empty.
It says the budget for Super Deep was a $2 million. So that's
Shut your face. This has an order of
yes,
magnitude more, and it wasn't even like I think Super Deep
that's
was probably a
basically
better
13
movie.
times the budget of Super Deep, and you know so
Oh
that's
boy.
where I don't know. It's just so weird. I mean, I thought about it though. It's like this movie actually had some big hit songs, and it's like, well, let's do Sony Pictures, which has Sony Music, and they have all the licensing, for that kind of stuff. And
Okay. Yeah.
so
No,
it's
thinking.
I don't know. It has quality to it, to everything about it. Basically, the shots, the casting, um, music, soundtrack, uh, practical effects, it all looks great. It's like the one thing that suffers is like a weird disjointed story. And if if ties
Yeah.
to the original source material are important to you, um, you will probably ding it even more. But it was interesting going into it with you like not knowing anything about Resident Evil, and me at least having played and beaten a good chunk of the game. So um, interesting contrast there, I should say.
Yeah,
So I was
for
going to say,
sure.
without further ado, we can go into the reception and see what other, I guess, critics and us viewers alike, consumers
Consume.
alike. So,
Yeah.
oh, dude, it's wrong slide.
Oh,
Hold on.
what?
No, 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 that's all
Holy
barbarian.
moly.
I updated all of this. Where did my slide go?
Like,
Hey, you
I
want
was
to you want to
like,
see this is
dang.
editing on the fly. You want to see this on the fly? Check this out. Oh yeah, that'd be awesome
Yes.
if it had all of that.
I was
I
like
was shocked too. I was like, dude,
flabbergasted.
that ain't right. Um,
No,
Here,
Barbarian
hold
was
on.
that good.
There we go. So hold on, I gotta adjust everything.
Dang,
Yeah,
that
see,
was
it's
fast. Look.
movie magic. That's how that works. So
All right, that
not
seems
great,
more
not great. So
understandable.
tomato meter is at 30%, but see, the audience score is 65. So critics definitely not super excited about this. Viewers gave it a little bit more. I mean, to be fair, like you even look at IMDb. IMDb is like middle of the line, 5.2 out of 10. It's not completely bombed. It's not nothing amazing. Out of 64,000 reviews, like 64,000 is not nothing. So it's a pretty good audience pool. Um, Basically, a middle of the road. IGN says it's 6. It's okay. It's all right. IGN is the largest video game news publisher out there reviewing a video game movie, so they have a pretty good idea of source material and such. So it's kind of a middle of the road. It averages. It's that 5 out of 10 realm that it's at.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's?
Is this me giving
I
my
I
rating of
guess
it
we
now
can
then?
get into that. I mean, I think it's time. Definitely in that realm of like final comments. What do you think?
I mean, there's nothing else about the movie that is like, let's discuss this. I feel like
Yeah.
we really already hit all the major
Yeah.
points of it, and that wasn't like a lot. But okay, yeah, I would say I definitely agree with this slide. This is going to be my lowest rated of all the movies that we've watched thus far. It was fine. It was fun. There were some scenes that I was like, "Oh, that was cool or interesting," but yeah, I could not watch it again and be fine, and I could. But I mean, if it's on, that's cool. So I'd give this one like a 5, and I think it really only is a 5 and not lower because I really like that scene, like in the police station with
Yeah.
the headphones and the music and the stuff. There were like just a few like key things, and like the part in the mansion with the zombies and the guy with the
Mm-hmm.
lighter, and he was like
Kept
turning
seeing
on
it
and
come
see the
on and off.
zombie, and like that, like just a couple key scenes that is like, okay, that was cool, but then it just, I felt like,
It had a
what did
very
I just
unsatisfying
watch?
ending because of the dumb story elements they added. That's the main thing that I
Yeah.
think I think the stuff they added was not the value add that they thought it was. I was like, this is not good.
Okay. So what do you think? So that I'm giving it 5, like,
It
okay.
sucks because
Sure.
I I like this movie. I think this is a valid attempt at taking a very well renowned source material and trying to put it on screen in an original capacity. So like everything, even down to the character outfits and stuff in this are like character outfits from the
Mm,
games. Like
okay.
that touch of stuff, that quality is really good. Kind of mimicking some of the shots from the original games looked great. Those were fun to see and go, oh, I know that, right? It's like I know what that's from.
Mhm.
Um,
A little
yeah, so
nostalgic.
there's like a lot of that stuff is just fun, but but that stuff will only be fun or mean something if you actually know the source material. If you don't, it's not the plus
Yeah.
you think it is. So unfortunately, this is one of those things that is like you as a director need to go into it to say, hey, we want to make something that's going to please fans, but we also need to know that this is going to be in theaters and a bunch of people are going to see it who are not fans and know nothing about this. So I feel like that's the weird struggle of like you need to settle more on the side of like I just need to make a great movie as opposed to I need to make a great Resident Evil movie. Like make the great movie
Mhm.
first and then make sure, you button up all the quality and fan servicey stuff. And
Yeah.
that great movie piece was not solidified. It was like there's a
No. That's a, yep, very good
lot
way of
lot of like
explaining
fan
that. Yeah.
servicey stuff in there that was great. It was fun to see. Did you see the post credits scene, or the mid credit scene? So
Yes.
Wesker
Yeah.
comes back alive. He's alive all along, and the lady that's there is Ada Wong. Ada Wong is another main character in the Resident Evil series. She helps the protagonist
Okay.
from time to time, and she's basically there to try to steal secrets from Umbrella Corporation. And she's kind of the one who was hiring Wesker the whole time to be doing that. She was the one texting him and everything. So she was
Oh,
hiring
okay.
Wesker to do that. But so they were teasing Ada Wong again, another main character, and the movies he wanted to make after this are not Ada Wong movies, or like really that much to do with Ada Wong. So there's just some like questions.
So interesting choice of putting that as what like that
Yeah,
mid-credit
so
scene would
I don't
be.
know. So like again, to kind of dial back to where I think this lands, I'm kind of with you. I think this is my
Yeah.
probably lowest rated out of what we've watched. I I have fun with it. It's like a guilty pleasure watch, but a lot of it has to do with because I'm like, oh, I want to see that cool like Resident Evil sequence again. I want to see this the Resident Evil characters do the Resident Evil thing. It's not because I care about a weird mutant orphanage story or none of that is compelling. So it's a great eye candy movie for Resident Evil fans. It's not so much of a great storytelling film. Um, and I
Yeah.
think like I kind of side with IGN. It's not it's competent in everything that it does. It's just not a great story. So it's like a 6 is fine for me. I would say it's like 6, bites to the neck out of 10. I think is kind of where I sit with that, or
Okay.
6 tainted water supplies out of
Nice.
10. I don't know. Wherever. Um, so yeah,
Nice.
so I will go ahead, and I think we're gonna do our similar movies. I think we're in our right positions here today. So
Yes.
I recommended the Zack Schneider Dawn of the Dead, uh, because I was thinking just zombies as a whole. I didn't think I could find another comparable kind of small scale zombie movie similar to this. Maybe like Omega Man or something. I don't know, but like Dawn of the Dead has that really great. People are in a single location trying to problem solve, figure out their next, move, and kind of go from there. It's sort of fit. I love the 2004 Zack Schneider Dawn of the Dead. I don't even know. Have you seen that movie? Oh my god, that's probably
No.
one of my favorite. Like, that's got to be like my favorite zombie movie of all time. But it's great. So you, on the other hand, picked.
Unbeknownst to me, not knowing what he had recommended, I recommended Army of the Dead. And I think it was because as I was watching this movie, there were some shots that I'm like, now that I know it's based on a video game, it felt kind of video gamey, and I could kind of see that now. And I think that some of the scenes reminded me of like some of the shots and the scenes in this movie. And then the zombie thing too was like, oh yeah, that's also in common.
Well, also the director, Zack Schneider. Zack Schneider directed both of these movies.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
um, and Army of the Dead was actually really good. There's Army of the Dead, and then there's uh, what's the other one? There's a sequel or pre-sequel, prequel. I don't remember. You don't remember the other one? I'd have to look that up because there's two of those, and they're
Yeah,
both
you
they're
got to
both
look that up.
entertaining. I like them both. I think they were both Netflix exclusives. So let's see, Army of the Dead. Let's see if it says what the other one is. It's gotta, it's gotta, right? Because the other one is specific to the heist. So Army of the Dead franchise. Hmm. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, Army of Thieves. Army of Thieves is the other one.
I
Okay.
don't think I
Well,
saw
if you
that
like
one.
that series, you might like Army of Thieves as well. Um, but yeah. Anyway, these are kind of our two picks. Both have to do with zombies. Both, I think, technically, Raccoon City isn't technically post-apocalyptic yet, but it's getting there. Dawn of the Dead is in the process of becoming a post-apocalyptic world as well, so kind of fits that. Army of the Dead is very apocalyptic already, so it hits there. Like full
Yes,
full on
already
zombie.
there.
So okay. Well, do you want to wrap there? Any final words?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, thanks for talking horror to me.
As well do you. It was a pleasure talking horror. So until next time.
Auf Wiedersehen, good night.
Yeah.